let's just dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're looking at a massive mathematical discovery that literally rewrites everything we thought we knew about whiteout survival strategy. Look, if you've been playing this game for a while, you know the drill. You probably have a set routine for upgrading your gear. But a huge Phase 3 research report just dropped, and let me tell you, it completely dismantles what we all accepted as the golden rule of combat power.
So, picture this. If you only have 10 essence stones to your name, where exactly do you spend them to survive? For years, players thought they had this game completely solved. But what if the accepted math on gear upgrades was just provably backwards? What if the choices you're making every single day are actually suppressing your overall battle power? You see this side by side? It's the ultimate free-to-play dilemma. You basically have two competing philosophies right now. Path 1 says prioritize hero gear and make chief gear secondary. But Path 2 flips that completely, saying you've got to prioritize chief gear above all else. And when you're F2P, this isn't just about base building, right? It's a game of absolute scarcity. Rare materials like mithril, essence stones, design plans, these are your true bottlenecks. You can't just swipe a credit card to max out the whole shebang. You have to make a choice. And wasting even a tiny fraction of these resources, yeah, that can set your account back by months.
Okay, Section 1, the ultimate power debate, or as I like to call it, a game of scarcity. Moving right along to Section 2, the scope multiplier trap, which is really all about the illusion of global power.
For the longest time, the community bought into this myth. We all believed that chief gear was inherently better simply because its buffs applied to all your marches globally, whereas hero gear only applied to the specific march that hero was leading. I mean, it sounds perfectly logical, right? Well, the Phase 3 data reveals a pretty shocking reality. Take a look at this comparison. The old Phase 0 assumption said chief gear is best because it applies to all troops, but the Phase 3 reality proves that hero gear strictly dominates. Why? Because the specific stats that hero gear boosts, namely lethality and health, are mathematically vastly superior to the attack and defense stats boosted by chief gear.
Now, if you look at this older Phase 0 chart, it shows chief gear eventually scaling well and overtaking hero gear in efficiency. But, and this is a huge but, this chart relies on a massive mathematical blind spot. It assumes that 1% of attack is exactly equal to 1% of lethality and combat value. Actually, scratch that, the researchers behind this new white paper realized that assumption wasn't just slightly off, it was entirely false.
Which brings us to Section 3, the stat elasticity secret. We're literally rewriting the combat engine here.
Now, what's genuinely fascinating about this next concept is how it exposes the game's hidden mechanics. We are fundamentally rethinking how troops actually deal damage. To understand the proof, we have to talk about log-kill elasticity. I know, it sounds like a textbook chapter, right? But it basically just asks this. If you increase a specific stats buff by exactly 1%, what is the actual percentage change in the number of enemy troops you kill? Researchers literally ran regressions on over 1,000 actual in-game battle reports just to find the true weight of every single stat.
Just look at the red and orange bars on this chart compared to the green and blue ones. The red and orange represent health and lethality, the stats provided by hero gear. The green and blue, that's attack and defense from chief gear. Health and lethality are literally twice as effective at winning battles as attack and defense. No joke.
So, the absolute crucial point is this multiplier right here, 2.1. Lethality and health boost your combat power 2.1 times more efficiently than attack and defense. This single mathematical truth is the exact reason why hero gear absolutely crushes chief gear per free-to-play resource invested. There is simply no global scope advantage that can overcome a stat that is literally more than twice as powerful.
And this brilliantly illustrates why this happens in actual gameplay. In a mid-game F2P setup, your attack stat is already heavily inflated by your research trees and hero passives. And because combat damage is calculated by multiplying your attack by your lethality, boosting the lower stat, which is lethality, yields massive, massive gains. To put that into perspective, 1% of lethality does the work of 4.5% attack. It's wild.
All right, Section 4, beating diminishing returns, or as I like to call it, the bucket analogy.
Let's move to how all this math creates a massive trap for F2P players. It's a phenomenon economists call diminishing marginal returns. Think of your stats as buckets of water. If you already have an attack stat of 200%, adding another 5% from a chief gear upgrade is just a drop in an already overflowing bucket. you're barely going to notice the difference. But because your lethality is naturally so much lower, adding 5% to it is like pouring water into an empty bucket. It drastically increases the total volume of your combat damage.
The research white paper summarizes this perfectly. Quote, "This central finding is unambiguous. Path 1 strictly dominates, delivering a 30 to 45% effective battle power advantage," end quote. I mean, wow. That is a staggering amount of power to miss out on just because you trusted a gut feeling over the hard math. By simply choosing the mathematically correct gear path, you can literally be nearly half again as strong as a player who spends the exact same amount of time and resources on the wrong path.
So, Section 5, the optimal FTP blueprint. This is your mathematical roadmap.
So, knowing all this, how do we actually play the game now? Let's distill all of this heavy optimization math into a dead simple, actionable master plan for your account. First up, you've got to understand the shadow price of your resources. Because materials like mithril are so insanely scarce, the math shows that every piece of mithril you waste on a low-priority upgrade functionally costs you 7.4 times the battle power of a smart upgrade. Let me repeat that, 7.4 times. Your mistakes in this game are incredibly expensive.
Furthermore, the researchers utilized some pretty advanced dynamic programming to prove a vital event strategy: hoarding your resources and batching your upgrades only during high-value scoring events, like State vs. State or King of Ice, improves your cumulative battle power by up to 60%. The golden rule here? Never upgrade outside of an event window unless it unlocks a critical, immediate tier bonus. Just don't do it.
Let's look at the optimal progression roadmap over time. In Phase 1, right up to Furnace 22, you should be dumping 90% of your focus into hero gear. It's a no-brainer. Then, as you move into Phase 2 and 3, so Furnaces 22 through 32, you slowly start integrating chief gear and charms. It really isn't until Phase 4, the extreme late game past Furnace 32, that you begin to balance your investments evenly as your hero gear starts to finally hit those diminishing returns we talked about earlier.
Okay, if you take away anything from this explainer, seriously, grab a screenshot of this slide right now. These are your absolute golden rules to maximize daily combat power. First, unconditionally rush your Chief Charms to level 5. It is hands down the highest return on investment in the game. Second, push your hero gear mastery forging from levels 1 to 10 using those essence stones. Third, dump absolutely all of your precious mithril directly into mythic infantry health gear. And fourth, I know I said it already, but I'll say it again, never upgrade outside of events.
We've unpacked a massive amount of data today, fundamentally proving that lethality and health are the true, undisputed kings of the battlefield. So I want to leave you with this final thought. Are you still batching your upgrades blindly, falling for that global scope myth? Or are you ready to let the math win your next war? Yeah, it might just be time to log in and fix your gear. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.